Good evening, YouTube viewers. I'm about to do a reaction video to it's by this username, syyenergy, energy, syyenergy7. He has a video called, Is the U.S. in debt? Or is it income? I have my piece of paper right here, and I have the speaker, so I'm going to play a little bit of what he says.
Well, I want to propose a little question out here, or something, food for thought, and you'll never hear this from nobody else on YouTube. For instance, if a bank loans you money, big round number like $250,000, and you never pay it back.
Okay, so what he's talking about, financial institution, some nameless corporation, whatever, loans you an amount. Doesn't really matter what the number is. We're choosing $250,000. Now, when he says loans, people commonly believe that bank loans are loans. But what is a loan? Okay, there has to be a consideration, there has to be collateral, there has to be a contract, there has to be witnesses to the contract. There's all sorts of things. Anyway, most of the time when a bank loans you money, they don't loan you anything. They just kind of, what do? They give you a access number that merchants use to access the credit system. And those merchants get paid. It just goes into their accounts. Sometimes they're at a positive, sometimes they're negative. They're always moving money around, in these bank accounts, but they're using your number. So then, the bank, just creates this money out of thin air, and that's it can go into the accounts of the merchants that you use, whatever. Meanwhile, you're making regular payments. You're going to the bank to make regular payments, and each of these deposits, you got to look up fractional reserve banking and see how your deposits give them power. Check out a place called moveyourmoney.info. Once you learn about fractional reserve banking, let me back up for a second. When it comes to the creation of money, the money supply, commonly people think of the bald eagle giving treasury securities to the Fed, and then the Fed gives them Federal Reserve notes, and that's the money supply. So eventually, and the Fed can take the treasury securities and sell them on the open market, make a profit. Eventually, these people redeem the treasury securities for Federal Reserve notes, more Federal Reserve notes than what they bought them for. So then how does the U.S. get them? Well, we got to get them through taxes, but we're also spending it on other crap. So sometimes, pretty much we have to go back to the Fed and ask for more money. So we give them even more treasury securities, and they create more money, and it goes in this vicious cycle. It's been going on for almost 100 years, and it's not going very well. So traditionally, that's what we think of with the money supply. But there's another layer of it, okay? Like the Fed, its member banks, each of them can create money. Every bank kind of creates money. This is why you gotta look up fractional reserve banking. Usually people find out about this in they're introduced to it first in the Zeitgeist movie, but if you have the time, I think his name is Bill Still, I think, you gotta look up The Secret of Oz. The Secret of Oz, formerly known as the Money Masters. But anyway, in this he'll explain fractional reserve banking. You giving your, every time you make a deposit in the bank, they only have to keep a certain amount of that on reserve, let's say 10%. So then if you pay $100, they got that $100 in reserve, which means now they can loan out $900 of, it's ridiculous. So anyway, the money supply is affected not only by this treasury swap business, but also the banks have the ability to create money through the fractional reserve banking thing. Check out moveyourmoney.info. Because we are giving the power to the banks, why not give your power to smaller banks? Maybe there's some moveyourmoney.info will give you you put in your zip code, and they will tell you all the banks in your area that didn't receive the TARP bailout funds. Because maybe they weren't out there giving loans to people who could not possibly pay them back. So anyway, the bank lends you $250,000, and you simply never pay them back. What happens? Well, the balance sheet of this bank, they say now that this much of it. Let's say they have this much in reserves, but they only have to keep 10% in reserves. In order for a bank to loan you $250,000, they only have to have $25,000 in reserves. Okay, this is really important. A good $225,000 of this, they created it out of thin air just by manipulating their balance sheets. So when the merchants are like trying to withdraw from, because you use you swipe the card and the thing, it goes in their account or not, it's all just accounting. Moving money around is just magic on paper. Well, now it's in the computer. But anyway, $225,000, you have to go find that somehow. And you have to go to the bank. You don't have to. You think you have to, because our friend here, syyenergy, he's called them loans. He said the bank loans you. Commonly, that's what we think happens, but I'm going to get into the nature of what it means to get a loan. In a minute, I'm going to look up the legal definition of it, and we're going to talk about it from there. So anyway, I've only listened to a few seconds of the video, and let's see what else is he going to say.
And they just lose out. Well, what happened? What happened? Basically, you got income, didn't you? Right? It was a loan. It's still on the credit side, right? It was a...
Okay, so let's look at your personal balance sheet. This bank made a bad investment by offering you this kind of credit line to draw from. So you do get asset income because you have to go to these merchants and buy real assets or services. That's where some people mess up. They use credit cards for services or food, stuff that there's no evidence of after all this money scheme is over. Let's say the whole financial system collapses. What are you going to be left with? All these numbers in the bank are going to be gone. You're only going to be left with your hard assets. So if you used your credit card to buy gold, silver, property like a house or guitars or a car or whatever, or maybe you could even do like a cash withdrawal up front, and just like hide that somewhere. So he also said the word income. Income is a very loaded word. We're going to have to look at the IRS definition of what income really is. And I'm also going to have to look up what the definition of loan is. I guess Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, we're going to get to that.
On the credit side of the balance sheet, but now it's on the credit side of the income statement. It's revenue, right? So I want you to think about that situation. You see this even in not that I get played by this garbage, but you might see people go around and say, yeah, my rent is due, my cat died, I got a problem with the car, my phone bill's due, and oh God, I just got this one little emergency coming up. And if you do that enough times, you get a lot of loans, don't you? But they never get paid back, so their income, right? Their income. You could do this same game with a business. You could say...
Excuse me for a second. What he's talking about here is he's saying, he's talking about the trap of when you get in the cycle, right? Here's you, okay, so you have, here's the money flowing towards you, here's the revenue, here's the income, and here's where it's going out. You're just really here's the current of money, the flow of money, currency, okay, current, right? It's the current. It's kind of like water. It flows, okay? It's the blood of the system. So everything that comes in is only destined to go out. And everything that's supposed to come out, well, you got to have something come in to get it there, okay? So anyway, he's saying, alright, oh, I made this much, oh, I made that much, oh, I made this much, oh, I'm spending this much, oh, I spent a little bit more, oh, no, I spent a little bit more. Sometimes your expenditures, like you said, but the cat died. Sometimes you need a little help. You don't have the income, so here comes the bank, and here's some money created out of thin air, and it actually hurts our bigger situation if you look into the macroeconomics of it. Also check out the, okay, anyway. So then you meet your obligations. These people also owe the bank. So in theory, the bank should be paying the merchants, but the merchants probably owe the bank too. So it's more just moving stuff around on their balance sheet. You said you can run a business like this too. I came here because I wanted to tell you the country is doing this as well. Okay? Here's the good old US of A, sorta. Alright, here I'm going to draw the rest of North America. Alright, and then I'll get a little bit of Mexico and Panama. And here's South America. Okay, I'll draw China over here. I'll draw the UK over there. Here's Africa. You can't really see Israel. Here's Greenland. Here's Hawaii. Here's Japan. Here's Australia. So, we get a bunch of stuff from China. We can't pay them back, so we get a bank to do this business with them. Maybe we're exporting a little Canada and Mexico, maybe. They're supposed to give in to us or whatever, and we don't pay more of the bank. We gotta go to war, so we're gonna go to Iran and the Middle East, but we gotta go to China first to get them to make bullets, and we go spend our money here. Meanwhile, we have entitlement systems, so we're like, anyway, we have to pay for a lot of stuff. The government has a lot of money going out, but we don't really have the income, so I think Brother John was saying like 50 cents on every dollar has to be borrowed or something, so we have to have the bank creating money out of thin air, shipping it in, so when it goes to the out, it's there, which devalues the currency. Is already, it's complete Ponzi scheme thing. It's a pyramid scheme, really. But so who's behind these banks? Who has the power to, in God we trust. God's not around right now, so we have these bankers standing in the place of God. We have to put our trust into them. That's another term that we can look at. We need to look at the banking definition. Excuse me. We have to look at the banking definition of what it means to trust. Okay, I'm going to go back to my my friend here. I don't know his name, unfortunately. I'd rather him not give his name. He needs to protect his security.
Hey, I have an LLC. I put so much money into it. Well, the valuation of my assets has actually went up, and the new market value is such and such.
He's talking about this money that you borrowed, or you think you borrowed, this money, this credit line that you have access to, because you were exchanging it for hard assets. Your net worth on paper has went up.
200,000 into something, but the market value is now 400,000. Or supposedly the market value is.
Oh, okay, alright. Now, he's getting into stuff like net present value and inflation and deflation and stuff, because how much these hard assets are worth isn't necessarily the same amount of money you paid for them, because money travels through time. Money travels through time, and values change over time. You see previous video, you see all these charts, right? It's you buy whatever. Okay, so the example he's given, like, let's say you bought silver with your credit card in the year 2000, and sure, your interest with this loan is going up and up, but the gain that you made with the price of silver is far surpassed the loan. Most of the time it doesn't really happen like that. Most of the time people buy assets, and if you look at the net present value thing, your assets depreciate over time. So how much you spent on these hard assets is nowhere near how much they're actually worth on paper. Unfortunately, that happens to most people. But if you're a smart business guy, then you can make you can use this credit to make good investments, and more money becomes more money.
Get a bank to loan you money, 400,000, or say 80% loan, whatever the hell it is. Say you get 320,000, and here you are. You got there's no personal guarantee or anything like that. The only liabilities on the LLC. and you're running this company that you have, and you basically what you do is you run it into the ground. You draw money out of it, you pay yourself administration, salaries, you hire your family, you got company vehicles. Maybe you have another building someplace that has empty office space in it that you got an extraordinarily high rent on, and you put the company office in there, and you charge that to the company, right?
Okay, excuse me for a second. What he's talking about right now is really super interesting. When engaging in commerce, okay, remember when you were a little kid, you had a legal guardian, okay? You didn't really have to worry so much about the ins and outs, because it all fell on this bigger entity that you were, So, when you become an adult, you replace your parents with a corporation of your own. You create an LLC, and in a way, this is your legal guardian now. All the ins, you account them to be going into the business. All the expenditures, you account them to be coming out of the business. All the hard assets you buy, they go under the business. You get your car, and like you said, you get all your friends and your family working for you too. So, we're just like, anyway, what he's saying is, you get the LLC to borrow on credit from the banks, use it to buy hard assets that you have and get to enjoy after the LLC closes down. The bank can't come after you because you're not personally liable for this stuff, or are you? Yeah, if it's an LLC, I think you are personally liable for all your debts, but it depends. How do you define debt? We're going to have to back up a thing. This is another, we have to look up the definition of what a debt really is, because what we commonly refer to as debt, this is how they tricked us. There's more going on here. I'm going to get to it in a minute. Let me see what else he's saying.
Well, you can pay yourself all kinds of benefits, healthcare benefits, just bleed the company dry through all kinds of stuff, right? And, every little expense there is, entertainment, expenses and all this kind of stuff. You get, 50% on entertainment, all kinds of garbage, office meetings, right? Training, you name it, there's all kinds of junk you could do. Then if you're buying hard assets, you really never know where the hell they're going up, office fixtures, right? You can bleed the company dry, and what happens with the bank when they lose out? They got a hollow shell. And this stuff you can go on all the time, right? But what's going on with the United States in general? We got $16 trillion worth of debt. Here's the debt clock. Yeah, it's highly accurate. Yeah, I can believe this number is highly accurate. They always like when they put all these, you got all these significant digits. This is like more accurate than a space launch. I don't think these numbers are anywhere accurate. But say it's $16 trillion debt. Well, you know what you could think of this as? It's not debt. It's income. It's income. They ain't paying it back. Think the elite are stupid? No, not at all. So I want you to actually put it in that, in light of that.
Okay. What he's trying to say here. Remember when I told you the bank only has to have $25,000 to loan out $250,000? Their balance, if you do pay it back, their balance sheet will be increased by this number, plus the interest. What happens if you don't pay them? They have insurance. There's other big buildings in New York City that will pay them the amount that they were expecting from you. And then they sell it to a debt collector who also pays them. And then, if you are sorry enough to pay the debt collector, that bill just got paid 3 times. There's something called the Bills of Exchange Act that says once a debt is discharged, there's no debt anymore. You can only pay a debt once. It's so when you default on a bank, at that point, you're like, yo, you guys got paid, don't worry about it. This extra $225,000, it was never there to begin with. They're saying they loaned it to you. But that's because they have the power to mess around with the balance sheets and be able to mess with their other clients' heads and make them think that they're gaining, but it's all numbers on a screen. And this number will increase if you actually get the cash and pay it back. But on the macro, you know what's going on. Remember when I told you when the people try to put in their treasury securities and they need the cash, but we don't have enough cash, so we have to go to the Fed to sell them more treasury securities, and we just keep putting the problem. It's just this cycle, this never-ending cycle. And this never-ending cycle, this is why I call it a pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, whatever you want. The bank's balance sheet is only going to get higher, because we're just going to keep having more and more debt, and as long as people believe that they have to pay it back to the bank, this balance sheet will keep getting higher and higher. You think, oh, well, this business lent me the money, so I have to do the right thing and pay them back. No, it's not the right thing, because when we go into these definitions, you're going to find out that the whole time, it was pretty much this business making a risky investment, and they lost. You didn't do anything wrong. That's enough. This is already a really long video. I don't know if I actually answered the question, but thanks for listening.